You're standing on a job site at 4 in the morning. The mixer trucks are already lined up down the block. 90 yards of concrete are rolling toward a pour that cannot wait because concrete does not care about your schedule. And the one machine that can save the entire day, the boom reaching 16 stories up into the dark, has a foreign name stamped on the side of it. It always does. I know, because for years I was the man who signed the check for that machine. Here is the part nobody says out loud. America cannot pour its skyscrapers, its dams, its bridges, or even the foundations under its own homes without concrete pumps that were designed in Germany and are now owned by China. Not mostly, not usually, almost entirely. And I watched that dependence get built one purchase order at a time from the inside while everyone around me called it progress. I spent the better part of my working life buying, running, and servicing this iron for one of the larger pumping outfits in the country. I trusted those German nameplates like scripture. So before this is over, I am going to show you a deal that was signed in the winter of 2012, a deal that quietly handed the machinery America builds on to a company on the other side of the planet. And if you already own one of these pumps and you feel like you are renting your own equipment back from the dealer, stay with me, because the last thing I tell you is the thing they least want you to know. Let me take you back to the first time I felt the ground shift under me. I was walking a pour at a high-rise, watching a boom pump fold and unfold like the arm of something alive, laying concrete exactly where 3 men used to break their backs with wheelbarrows. And I remember thinking we could not do this without him. I meant it as a compliment. It took me years to understand it was a confession. Because when you cannot do something without one supplier, you do not have a supplier. You have an owner. The two names on nearly every serious boom pump in this country are Putzmeister and Schwing. Say them out loud on any job site, and every operator over 40 will nod. Putzmeister was founded in Germany in 1958 by a man named Karl Schlecht, who started tinkering with plaster machines and ended up building the equipment that reshaped modern skylines. Schwing goes back even further, to 1934, in the industrial heart of Germany. For 2 generations, German engineering owned the art of pushing wet concrete straight up into the air, higher and farther than anyone thought possible. And they earned that reputation. When they built the tallest tower in the world in Dubai, the concrete was pushed nearly 2,000 feet straight into the sky by a Putzmeister pump, a world record that stood for years. When the reactors melted down in Japan in 2011, the machines they flew in to spray water and concrete onto those buildings from a safe distance were German boom pumps, including one of the largest on Earth with an arm stretching more than 200 feet. When they rebuilt at the site of the towers in New York, those pumps were on the deck too. So here is the honest question I never let myself ask back then. If this machine is that critical, that irreplaceable, that woven into everything America builds, why does America not build it? Why did we hand the whole thing away? The easy answer is that the Germans were simply better, and for a long time that was true. But the harder answer, the one I learned by living it, is that once you depend on a machine you cannot make and cannot fix, the people who make it stop being your vendor and start being your landlord. And a landlord always, eventually, raises the rent. That brings me to the winter of 2012 and the deal that should have been front page news in every construction town in America. In late January of 2012, the family that owned Putzmeister sold the company, not to another German firm, not to an American buyer. They sold it to Sany, one of the largest construction equipment manufacturers in China, in a deal valued at around 360 million euros, roughly $525 million at the time. The crown jewel of German concrete pumping engineering, the brand on the machine that built the tallest tower on Earth, became Chinese-owned in the space of a signature, and it did not stop there. That same year, another Chinese giant, XCMG, took a controlling stake in Schwing, reported at around 52%. So the two great German names, the two companies America leaned on to pour its future, both passed into Chinese hands within months of each other. The nameplates stayed German. The engineering heritage stayed German. But the ownership, the profit, and the long-term direction crossed an ocean. I remember when the news filtered through our industry. It was treated like business page trivia, a merger, a consolidation. Nobody on my crews blinked. We kept buying the same machines with the same badges, and the badges had not changed, so why would we worry? That is exactly how you get captured. Not with a bang, with a press release nobody reads and a logo that stays the same. Because here is what actually changed. Quietly, over the years that followed, the machine got smarter, and every time it got smarter, I got weaker. Let me explain what I mean. Because this is where the trap really tightens. The old pumps I grew up around were hydraulic and mechanical. If a valve stuck, you could get in there. If a line clogged, you knew the pattern. A sharp operator with a wrench and a manual could keep a machine alive in the field for a decade. But the new generation of boom pumps runs on proprietary electronic control systems. Putzmeister has its own branded control architecture that manages the boom, the output, the fuel, everything through sensors and software. Schwing has its equivalent, and that software is not yours. It never was. When a fault code lights up on one of these modern pumps in the middle of a pour, you are not looking at a mechanical problem you can diagnose with your eyes and your hands. You are looking at a locked computer that speaks only to a dealer laptop. The diagnostic tool that reads and clears those codes is controlled by the manufacturer and their authorized service network. I have stood on a job with a $500,000 machine frozen solid, 90 yards of concrete going hard in the trucks behind me, waiting on a technician to drive in from 2 hours away with the one laptop that could tell me what a sensor already knew. That is the moment the whole thing revealed itself to me. That is the moment I understood I did not own the machine. I owned the payments. They owned the knowledge. And that is exactly the kind of hard-won knowledge I spent years assembling. The kind that never shows up in a service manual or a dealer brochure. I put everything I learned about how this system works, how the parts market is structured, and where the real leverage sits, into a book called Fixed or Owned. It walks you through the ownership trap step by step, from the acquisition deals to the parts chain to the moves you can make right now on the iron you already have. If you are running this equipment or planning to, that book will save you more than its price the first time you open a competing invoice. You can find it in the description below. Now, back to the machine itself, and why the lock was never where you thought it was. And knowledge in this business is the whole game. A truck-mounted boom pump is not a cheap tractor. Depending on the reach and the configuration, you are talking anywhere from $500,000 to well over $1 million for a single unit. When a machine like that goes down mid-pour, you are not just paying for the repair, you are eating the concrete that sets up useless in the drum. You are paying the crew standing around. You are paying the penalty for the slab you did not finish. You are burning the trust of a general contractor who will remember your name the next time he hands out work. The repair invoice is the smallest number on that whole ugly page. So let me ask you the question I finally asked myself. If a machine that expensive, that critical, can be grounded by a software lock only the manufacturer can open, then who really controls your business? You or the company that holds the laptop? I want to be fair, because I was a believer, and believers deserve the full picture. The engineering in these machines is genuinely brilliant. The boom control that dampens the sway so one operator can place concrete with a joystick from the ground is real innovation. Nobody handed the Germans their reputation. They built it weld by weld over decades. That is exactly why we trusted them enough to become dependent on them. The betrayal is not that the machine is bad. The betrayal is that the machine got so good and so closed that we forgot how to live without it. And then the people who could live without us bought the whole thing. Because think about what that dependence actually means at the national level. When the two dominant makers of the pumps that build your infrastructure are foreign-owned, the parts pipeline runs through foreign factories. The pricing decisions get made in foreign boardrooms. The next generation of the technology gets developed to serve someone else's strategy. And every tower, every bridge deck, every reactor containment wall poured in this country quietly depends on a supply chain that answers to shareholders who owe America nothing. I used to think self-reliance was about owning your gear outright, paying it off, holding the title. I learned the hard way that a paid-off machine you cannot fix, cannot diagnose, and cannot get parts for on your own terms is not a possession. It is a leash with a longer chain. But here is where the story turns, because I did not walk away empty-handed. I walked away with what I learned. And if you are one of the people I am really talking to right now, this next part is built for you specifically. If you already own one of these machines, if you are a pumping contractor or a builder who is looking at your own boom pump in the yard right now thinking, I am trapped, I bought the leash, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not as stuck as they want you to feel. There are real moves you can make this week on the iron you already have without crawling back to the dealer for every single thing. The first one is the one that saved my crews the most money, and it is hiding in plain sight. The wear parts on a concrete pump, the parts that actually fail and get replaced constantly, are not exotic. I am talking about the delivery pipes, the elbows, the reducers, the wear plates, the cutting rings, the S-valve components, the clamps, the rubber hoses. These parts wear out on a schedule because they spend their lives with abrasive, wet concrete blasting through them at high pressure. And for years I paid dealer prices on every single one because I assumed the machine was a sealed system and only the branded part would fit. That was a lie I told myself, and the dealer was happy to let me believe it. The truth is there is a robust, independent market for these wear parts. Independent European pipe and wear part manufacturers, some of them the very suppliers that make components for the big brands in the first place, sell delivery lines and wear parts to fit these pumps at a fraction of the dealer markup. The specifications for pipe diameter, wall thickness, and flange type are industry standards, not secrets. Once I started sourcing hardened delivery pipe and wear plates from independent suppliers instead of the dealer parts counter, the same job cost me a fraction of what it used to. Same fit, same or better hardness, a fraction of the price. The second move is about the people, not the parts. The hydraulics and the diesel on these machines are not magic. The engine is often a common industrial diesel you can find in a dozen other machines. The hydraulic pumps and cylinders are serious, but a genuinely skilled independent hydraulic technician can service them. The lock-in is real on the proprietary electronic control software, and I am not going to pretend you can hack that in your barn. But an enormous amount of what fails on these machines is mechanical and hydraulic wear that a good independent shop can handle if you build the relationship before you need it, not during a breakdown. Find that shop now. Put them on speed dial before the emergency, so you are never again standing over a dead machine at 4 in the morning with only one phone number that works. The third move is the one I wish someone had told me 20 years ago. Get connected to the community of operators and owners who share this fight. In this country, the American Concrete Pumping Association exists, and beyond the safety certification and training, it is a network of people who run this exact equipment and trade hard-won knowledge about what actually breaks, which parts sources are legitimate, and how to keep a machine running without surrendering to the dealer for every hiccup. The manufacturers would much rather you feel alone with your fault code. You are not alone. There is a whole trade full of people who have solved the problem you are staring at right now. And the fourth move, the strategic one, is to stop assuming the only serious pumps on earth wear those two badges. There are other builders. There are American and Canadian pump manufacturers still making truck-mounted and trailer pumps. There are Korean-built machines that have moved aggressively into this market with strong reach and lower price points. When it is time to add to your fleet, you have more leverage than you think, and every quote you get from an alternative maker is a card you can lay on the table when the dominant dealer tells you the price is the price. The moment they know you have somewhere else to go, the conversation changes. I did not learn any of this from a brochure. I learned it after I stopped trusting the brochure. Now let me give you the thing I promised you at the start. The thing I found buried under the fine print. The thing that, once you see it, you cannot unsee. For years I believed the branded parts had to come from the manufacturer because the manufacturer made them. That was the entire justification for the markup. You are paying for German engineering, they told me, right down to the elbow. But when I finally started tracing where the parts actually come from, I found something that turned my stomach and then set me free. Many of the wear components, the delivery pipes, and the hardened wear parts that get sold to you at a premium through the brand's parts channel are manufactured by independent specialist suppliers who will sell those very same parts made to the same standard directly to you. The brand, in many cases, is buying from the specialist, stamping it, and selling it back to you at a heavy markup. I had been paying a middleman to relabel a part I could have bought straight from the source. That is the whole scheme in one sentence. They convinced an entire industry that the machine was a sealed cathedral where only the priesthood could touch the parts when the parts were on an open shelf the whole time. The lock was never on the pipe. The lock was on your belief that you needed permission to buy it. And the beautiful part, the part you can act on this week, is that finding those independent suppliers takes nothing more than knowing they exist and asking the right question. Get the exact specification of the delivery pipe or wear part you replace most often, the diameter, the wall thickness, the flange, the length. Take that spec to an independent concrete pump parts supplier and ask for the same part unbranded. Compare the two invoices side by side. I have watched hard men who thought they had seen everything go quiet when they lined those two numbers up on the tailgate. The dealer part and the independent part, same fit, and the difference in price was enough to make the truck payment. That is not a loophole. That is not a trick. That is just the truth the markup was built to hide. So here is what I want you to carry out of this. The machine reaching 16 stories into the dark is a marvel, and there is no shame in running one. The shame belongs to a system that let two foreign-owned companies become the sole keepers of the knowledge and the parts that America builds on, and then taught you to believe you needed their permission to service your own iron. You never did. The moment you source your own parts, build your own independent repair network, and put a competing quote on the table, you take back the one thing they were quietly counting on, you never reclaiming control. You are the kind of person who refuses to rent what you already bought. That is why you are still here at the end of this instead of scrolling past. You paid for the machine. You should own the whole machine, the knowledge included, and now you have a start on getting it back. So I want to hear from you, and I want you to actually do this because this crowd reads and stays quiet, and this one matters. Tell me the single worst repair invoice you ever ate on a piece of equipment you thought you owned. Name the machine, name the number, and name where you are watching from tonight. Put it in the comments, because every one of those stories is another crack in the wall they built, and somebody scrolling down needs to read that they are not the only one it happened to. If you have ever stood over dead iron waiting on the one man with the one laptop, then you already belong here, with the rest of us taking our equipment back one part and one hard question at a time. Stay with me, because next I am going to show you exactly which independent parts suppliers the big brands are quietly buying from and how to read a delivery pipe spec so you never overpay for a stamped elbow again. That is the one they really do not want you to have. That's the overview, but there's so much more to this story. Inside my membership, the Circle, I take that 2012 Putzmeister sale and walk you through the contract itself, clause by clause. And if you have a question, you ask me directly, and I answer you myself. You won't be alone either. Just point your phone at the code on screen, and you can cancel anytime. Come join me. If you found this helpful, I'd love for you to subscribe and stay with me here. There's plenty more like this waiting for you, so take a look around and keep exploring.